It's crucially important that New Zealanders have trust and confidence in the Pharmac model, including the way it considers new medicines, the way it identifies and addresses safety concerns, and the way it makes decisions. This is how we can make a good system even stronger, and we shouldn't shy away from that challenge. In the 27 years since Pharmac was established, there have been various reviews of aspects of its operations. But none of these reviews have focused directly on the agency's performance or its role as part of the wider health and disability system. Prior to the last election, I committed to an independent review of Pharmac, and today we are delivering on that commitment. The review will focus on two key issues. First, how well Pharmac performs against its current objectives and whether and how its performance could be improved. And second, whether Pharmac's current objectives enable it to improve health outcomes for all New Zealanders, with an emphasis on equity, in particular for Māori and Pacific peoples, and whether and how those objectives should be changed. It will consider the timeliness of decision-making, transparency and accessibility of decision-making processes too, an issue that has been raised by people. Through this review, we'll ensure that people can, I hope, have confidence that Pharmac is making the best contribution it can to improving health outcomes for all New Zealanders. We have a good system. Our challenge is to make it better.
It's important to stress that the review is independent. Chairing the review will be Sue Chetwin, who has Chief Executive and Governance experience, but more recently as the Head of Consumer New Zealand Consumer Advocacy experience, and that's a very important dimension to bring to the review process. We'll also have Dr. Sue Kringle, who is a GP and a health academic, as well as Leanne Takaru, who is a pharmacist prescriber and also has a health academic background. Both Sue and Leanne whakapapa to various iwi, and they would bring a strong Māori perspective to it. We know that when it comes to equity of access to health care, Māori are often left out in the cold, and so we need to make sure that that perspective is brought firmly to the review. Dr. Tristram Ingham also has a health background and a health academic background, and he brings a disability perspective as well to the review process. Heather Simpson, known to many of you, is a health economist by training and by current practice. She has a few other factors in her background in terms of public policy that equip her to make a very important contribution to the review. And Frank McLaughlin is a long-standing barrister, also has a public policy background, former Deputy Secretary of Justice, former member of the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet staff, and he will bring a legal and policy background to it. The principal questions that the reviewer is seeking to answer are whether Pharmac in its current decision-making is satisfying the objectives, the statutory objectives and its organisational objectives set for it, and secondly, whether or not those objectives, particularly the statutory ones, are still fit for purpose. It is not about challenging the independent pharmaceutical procurement agency model as a whole. It is about the way Pharmac currently conducts itself and conducts its decision-making. Where we are at with Pharmac at the moment, Pharmac effectively procures pharmaceuticals on a budget of just over $1 billion a year, and that follows the additional funding that this government has put into it over the last 3 odd years. Last year alone, nearly 4 million New Zealanders received funded medicines that have been the subject of decisions of Pharmac. 14 new medicines were funded last year, including 6 cancer drugs, and 32 medicines had their access broadened as a result of decisions by Pharmac. We know through the public debate and advocacy there have been concerns about access to some medicines, some that are funded overseas but not necessarily funded here. So this review is an opportunity to look at the way Pharmac approaches those sorts of decisions to ensure that more New Zealanders are getting access to the therapeutic medicines that they need. I reiterate what the Prime Minister said. Pharmac, for nearly 28 years, has been a success story for New Zealand and is regarded with envy by many countries around the world. We want to make sure that it is doing the best job possible for all New Zealanders, and that's a critical objective of this review.